I'm Untitled and this is going to be Metroid Dread Any NMG Rookie Mode. This video is mostly intended as a submission to the Benelux Speedrunner Gathering BSG Plus, February 2025, but it's also sort of a progress report of sorts. I've been really grinding out this category recently, and I wanted to record another commentary video with it to sort of show where I'm at and celebrate my progress. So that's what this is. I don't have time to do a high effort edited video, so instead you're going to get me rambling at you sort of like this for the next hour and a half or so. I'm going to tell you about what this category is, what we're going to do, and about my personal progress, things that I've learned in the last couple weeks, and the ways in which I've improved. My pronouns are its for reference, and yeah, let's get this started. So, in any percent, no major glitches, which is what NMG stands for, of course. We're not allowed to do most things. There's glitches that have been removed from the game via patch are all banned, and there's also another list of specific stuff that we're also not allowed to do. But glitch aficionados, don't click away. There's still plenty. Our first relevant glitch is coming up in actually just a minute, a little bit less. This being a Metroidvania, you know, we're starting out with very few abilities, and the way that the game's going to progress is we're just going to beeline towards whatever the next relevant upgrade is that's going to allow us to get to the next one, and then the next, and the next, and so on and so forth until we beat the game. Now right here, I'm already implementing a little bit of movement that I didn't used to know, where I'm doing all these mantles real clever. But here's our first glitch, like I was saying. This right here is a pseudo wave. And we do two of them right back to back, this one and then another one coming up, and now this one's going to take me quite a while. But what a pseudo wave is as the name implies, it's an approximation of the wave beam upgrade, where we clip the arm cannon out of bounds, but not the main Samus actor. Yeah, that didn't take as long as I remember it. Nice. But if the main Samus actor clips out of bounds, then you die. It's hard-coded. But if you just clip the arm cannon out of bounds, that's fine. And so we can use that to shoot through walls, hit blocks we're not supposed to. Doing that allows us to sequence break over to Corpius here, our first boss fight. This would normally come a good bit later, but doing him first like this is a little bit faster, of course. So that's why we're here. Corpius is an interesting boss where like you're just constantly trying to... Basically, it's a reflexes game. You need to respond to where he moves and just shoot him again as quick as you can. But every time you hit him, he moves to a random location. His head moves up, down, and so on. So it's a little bit tricky. Defeating Corpius gives us the Phantom Cloak in any event. This upgrade allows us to turn invisible, and it also slows us down when we're using it, muffles our footsteps, makes us sneaky. You're supposed to use that to evade enemies, of course, and we will do that, but mostly we just needed to go through these motion sensor doors. That's really the main thing. But also the way that it interacts with your movement, where it makes you slower, we're actually going to abuse that a little bit to do some tricks later on, so look out for that. Right here we're talking to Adam, and you'll note that I mashed through the text really fucking fast. Reason for that is that this game allows turbo controllers, and that's a whole thing, and don't bother arguing about it, you know, we've all heard it a million times, but it's just for the health of the game, right, and for the health of the runners, to keep our hands intact. But what's cool is actually, I recorded this on the 21st of December 24, which is just earlier that day, the maximum turbo frequency was actually raised to 21. So this is the first full run that I've ever done that has, in my case, a turbo of 20, because my controller doesn't have turbo 21, but a turbo of 20 hertz as opposed to the previous 12. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, all that said, that's going to allow us to mash really fast for like boss fights or text or that type of thing. Coming up, we're going to use the Phantom Cloak, like I was saying. I'm going to do this funny little jump. It's going to take me an attempt or two, but I'm going to do this funny little jump with the Phantom Cloak. Lay up, there we are. Where because the Phantom Cloak slows you down in this weird, peculiar way, it allows us to actually jump back up that slope to reach the platform on the other side, which is awesome. A little bit of sloppy movement there, not too happy with that, but so be it. We've got another small sequence break coming up immediately. This is pressure pad skip, going to do this particular wall jump. Now this takes me quite a while. The early game for this run wasn't anything particularly great, which is a little bit unfortunate. But the way that works is by doing that melee attack, and you know, Samus's hand moves backwards, you can push yourself off against that vertical or the diagonal ceiling behind us to push back towards the ledge to sort of cancel out some of the backwards momentum that you get from the wall jump. And so by doing that, you can just barely reach up at the top of that ledge and grab onto it. Doing all of that, those two sequence breaks and everything, that gets us the charge beam. This would normally be the first upgrade you get, but we're doing things a little bit out of order here. Charge beam does what it says, you know, you can charge up the beam and it's stronger that way, and also you can open charge beam doors. That's really the main thing. That'll be a bit of a trend. There's a lot of items in this game that aren't necessarily super useful on their own. The charge beam actually decently useful compared to most, just because the damage is nice. Like right there, for example, I can kill that bat, you know. But mostly we do just need it to open doors. Now, we've been through this room before, right? You might recognize it. It's the same movement the second time through. Dang it, I missed Buck Hob. So sad. So we're going back up to where Corpius was, only this time when we leave that area, we're not going to go west like we did before, we're going to go east. Because now that we have the charge beam, once we go through this motion sensor door, there's a charge beam door right behind it. So we need both of those items in order to actually advance through here. So that's where we're going. We're on our way to press a button that's going to open up another door sort of further in the west again, through which we can then go to try and acquire our next item. Excuse me, had to mute to sneeze there for a second. Here's that button I was talking about. This opens these thermal doors throughout the region. We need that to, again, to advance west towards our next item. The way that Metroid Dread sort of progresses, if you haven't played it before, is you go about collecting items that eventually open the way to a central unit, which is a mini-boss fight. And each central unit you defeat gives you the power to kill one of the dangerous, scary Emmy robots. And so that's where we're going, right? We're just on our way to a central unit here to blow up the Emmy that lives in Artaria. Which will give us our next item. Now there's another sequence break. There's another trick we have to do until then. Because of all the sequence breaks that we've done, we have to actually do this in a fucked up little way where I'm going to do a funny little wall jump here. Let me see if I can... There we are. So that works similarly to pressure pad skip, where you use the melee to push yourself up against that ceiling, or push yourself off from that ceiling. So having done that, we can now actually progress sort of like normal. So we're just going to head on over to this central unit here. And so right here, you know, again, the new turbo cap is sort of going to come into play. And also the fact that when they raised the turbo cap yesterday, just for reference, it's the 22nd today, they also unbanned missile weaving, where you can turbo the laser and then sort of tap the missile button to also fire missiles more or less at the same time to increase your damage output. That didn't used to be allowed, it is now. So I can use that to dispatch that central unit nice and quick. Now this is going to look a little bit scary if you've never seen a speedrun of this game before. You might think, oh no, don't do it, you're going to get caught. But I'm not going to get caught. I've done this too many times. I know exactly what I'm doing. So I'll just shoot the Emmy. She's going to crawl right up to me, but she's not quite going to make it. And then we can just slide under her when she's stunned and take care of that. Now defeating this Emmy gives us the Spider Magnet. A very useful ability. It's going to allow us to attach to these blue surfaces that you see all over the place, and like crawl up them and wall jump off of them and so on. So very useful ability for movement. I'm going to be using it just constantly because there's blue shit everywhere. So we're just going to take that and use it to make our way to the next region of the game, Cadaris. So that's just our entire goal right now. So we're just going to go northeast, again, through a couple of rooms we've actually already been through, and then just leave this place. We won't need to be in Artaria for a little while. We are going to come back here, though. This is a Metroid game, right? We're going to be going back and forth between different areas, just constantly. That's the whole point. Lots of backtracking, lots of new roads opening up every time you find a new upgrade, right? But obviously, this being a speedrun, the route is optimized a little bit more than it maybe would have been in most casual playthroughs. So we're not going to be making useless visits to anywhere, but we are going to be making a lot of separate visits to all the places. This is cool right here. I'm going to do a little damage boost. First off that guy, but then more notably off of this guy. Whee! To make it all the way over that slope. Very satisfying strat to do. That prevents us from having to grab onto this little like horizontal lift thing all the way in the left corner of that room, which would just slowly drag you over to the door on the right. Doing this is much faster, so love that. And like I said, that gets us to Cataris. Now this is our first instance of a loading zone, or like a real one anyway, where we're just going to sit in this elevator for like 20 seconds. We're going to be doing this a lot. The run's only like an hour and a half long, a little less, but a good chunk of that is actually spent in these kinds of loading screens, which is a little unfortunate because it's like, you know, breaks up the gameplay, right? It's a little boring. But at the same time, from a runner's perspective, it's actually kind of nice. Where like every couple of minutes, you just get 20 seconds to like drink some water, stretch, you know, get your cat off the desk, whatever, which is actually very convenient. So there's parts of the game later on, especially where we're going to be sort of having multiple of those loading zones back to back, and then it kind of sucks because you just spend like a minute basically doing nothing. But for most of the run, it's quite nice actually. So I do really appreciate those. Anyway, here in Cataris, our first objective is to leave. But in order to do that, our first objective is to press this button. That's going to open up some of these thermal doors, which will lead to another button, which will open up more thermal doors, which will lead to another button. And we're going to rinse and repeat this like 5 times, I think, 4 or 5 times, to just make our way through all of this like early Cataris stuff, and then eventually leave, like I said, because there's actually nothing really in here for us right now in terms of items, just like some ammo or whatever. So we actually want to get to the next region, Dyron, before we can sort of start progressing again. But the way that we're going to do that is a little bit clever. There's a sequence break sort of midway through Cataris here called Adam Save Skip. There's another name for it. I don't remember what it stands for, but it's ADM as opposed to ASS. I forget what that actually stands for. I'll admit I'm a little bit out of touch with the community. I don't really know a lot about this game in terms of like terminology and things. I know a lot of things practically. I'm good at the game, but that's about it. In any event, Adam Save Skip, whatever you want to call it, is a sequence break that we're going to do like halfway through here, like I said. Oh, right. I forgot about this. Yeah, this is really unfortunate. So like I said, the early game for this run was actually pretty bad. I even get caught here, which is just like, I lose like 30 seconds for that, plus the shenanigans there with this wall that was really bothering me. Luckily went better on the second time through, so that's something. Anyway, Adam Save Skip is a sequence break we're going to do in a minute, where I'm going to do a complicated wall jump to get over something we're not supposed to get over. And doing that will not only speed up this section of Cataris and get us to Dyron sooner, it'll also prevent us from ever having to talk to Adam again. So it's going to skip all of the Adam text throughout the entire rest of the game, which saves like 2 or 3 minutes, which is obviously really fast, so we love that. But for right now, again, we're just going about pressing all these different buttons and evading the Emmy, or at least trying to. So yeah, that's like Cataris is this big back and forth of like continually going through the same rooms over and over because some door somewhere is unlocked now. It's a very fun section to do though, I think, as a runner. This is one of my favorites. There's a lot of really cool movement in here, like that slide just there, right, where we shoot the button and then before our shot actually hits the button, we slide back under the wall again, so that part of that movement happens in a cutscene where we don't have control of Samus. Or this right here, where I'm going to just shoot this door right now, even though I'm not heading through it yet, because that door is really slow to actually open when you shoot it the first time, meaning that if I just shoot it right there, and then come back when I actually want to get through it a few seconds from now, I can actually just head through, right? So that's wonderful. I don't have to wait at all. Now this, coming up, we're going to do Adam Save Skip, and on this run, it didn't go well. This is going to take like a minute or so. I'm just going to sit here missing it in a variety of different ways. The way that this works is similar to Pressure Pad Skip and Otaria Water Skip that we did way earlier, where I'm going to use the melee to sort of push against the wall in a particular place to push Samus into the correct location to do this really precise wall jump. This whole business is frame perfect, unfortunately, and it's quite difficult. I normally do get it faster than this. This was a little bit frustrating for that reason, but it is a very difficult trick, and it really varies run to run how long it takes me to get it. Again, it took about a minute right here, if I remember correctly. There we go. So having done that, I'm now going to shoot this fly and then do a funny little bit of phantom cloak movement. That's similar to Artaria Water Skip that we did before, where the phantom cloak interacts a little bit weirdly with slopes, lets us jump in particular ways, in a way that actually just lets us reach the little ceiling up there. So that's really convenient. Here I'm going to do a pseudo wave through this wall to shoot that button. I don't need to do that, I could just slide under there, but doing this is a little bit faster. Assuming that you do it decently quickly. I think third try here might not have actually really saved any time anymore, but whatever, that's fine. Hitting that button turns off the heat in the room below, which is nice because if we went in there right now, it would probably kill us. So we need to get rid of that before we can actually advance. So that button's quite important. That's, that was sort of the point of Adam's save skip here in the short term, is hitting that button a little sooner. Not having to go all the way around to get there. I'm going to jump over this Emmy. Again, that looks sort of scary if you've not seen it before, but that's just totally normal Metroid Dread speedrun behavior. I'm not scared of him at all there. Really, the green Emmy won't give us any more trouble from here, hopefully. I got caught by him once, which is unusual, but that is easily the easiest place to have gotten caught by him, so hopefully it won't be happening again. Now this is the room where we turn the heat off, right? So I'm just gonna drag this platform on down, and then we're gonna continue on. I'm gonna bump into this guy. I love that jump. It's a very simple jump, but I do like it. Right there, I jumped a little bit early, just as soon as I come out of the glass. Reason for that is that triggers that door to start opening before I've actually grabbed the E-tank, which cuts down a little bit on the time that I have to wait to get up there, which is nice. Now we're well on our way, only 2 rooms between us and the next region. So this room right here is cool. Just gonna do a bunch of clever mantles and like missile shots and charge beam shots and stuff to dispatch all these enemies. It's not perfect movement, but that's okay. Going to Dairon, as has been our goal for a minute now. Reason that we want to do that again is because there's not really any upgrades for us in Cataris, and there are in Dairon. And the item in question being the wave beam. Or not the wave beam, good lord. The wide beam. That's going to allow us to then further progress. But there's nothing actually else really going on in Dairon, even once we have that item. So this is one of those times where we're just sort of going to very briefly pop in to Dairon just to pick up that one item and then immediately leave again. You're going to be seeing that a couple of times. And so that's sort of what I was talking about, where sometimes you have a lot of these area transitions, and it can get a little bit bland. But this section of Dairon does take a good few minutes to do, so don't worry. Immediately, I'm going to try to do something similar to that Phantom Cloak movement we did after Ass, where I'm going to like jump over here and try to do a similar thing, but obviously I missed it, right? So I'm just going to forget it and not try it again. That's something I only learned very, very recently, and I'm still not good at it. So I do mess that up a lot. But hopefully I'll get better at it with a little bit more time. Accidentally grabbed onto that blue wall there. Not supposed to do that, I'm just supposed to fall. But yeah, right here, this is a cool section. I always like this part. There's this dark room where it's supposed to be all gloomy and scary, and you have to sort of find your way through this little maze, but obviously I know where to go. I'm not worried about it. But the movement here is actually very satisfying. There's a lot of little things going on, and that's true of Metroid Dread in general. You're going to be seeing me, like, meleeing off of ledges, or sliding off, or doing little slide jumps, or re-spinning in particular places, and so on and so forth. And all of these things are just like tiny little optimizations everywhere that just make the game a little bit faster, of course. But a lot of it isn't really worth pointing out. A lot of the time, there's bigger things to talk about. So you're just going to have to assume that whenever you see me do something weird, it's probably because it was faster. But that's also not always true. I'm not perfect, and I'm not actually really all that good at the movement in this game yet. So a lot of the time I will also just fully do things that aren't actually very fast. So take my movement with a grain of salt. Anyway, like I was saying, we get the wide beam here. That means our beam is now 3 times as wide as it used to be. That means it does more damage. It also means it's easier to aim with, which is honestly maybe the more relevant part. It's going to be much easier for me to just hit things from here on out. Wide beam also allows us to open wide beam doors and move wide beam boxes, as you would expect. But wide beam boxes are notoriously jank. Luckily, they've been kind so far, but there's lots of cases where you shoot a wide beam box with a fully charged shot, and it's just dead center, and it doesn't budge. So that's kind of frustrating. Pardon me, took a second to take a sip of water here. That's the type of thing we're going to have to settle for with this type of sort of one-take big commentary. I can't really cut that type of stuff out for the most part. I did have to make a small cut earlier when there was some noise outside my room. Bit unfortunate, but that's what happens when you don't live alone. Makes sense. Anyway, we're going back to Cataris. Like I said, we really went to Dyron just purely to pick up the wide beam. And so here in Cataris, we're going to use the wide beam to acquire the morph ball, and then immediately leave as well. And that's sort of, this whole first maybe half hour of the game is sort of like that, where we're bouncing around back and forth between Artaria, Cataris, and Dyron. So it's sort of this little self-contained triangle of just like stuff to do. You know, first we clear out Artaria for the most part, then we go through Cataris to get to Dyron, just to get one item, to go back to Cataris to get another item, which is then going to get us back to Artaria. So it's a whole thing. Anywho, I'm going to shoot this block, slide under there, shoot that block a little bit more. So this way, by shooting that block that quickly, when the enemy climbs up over the ledge, he's actually going to climb up face first instead of backside first, which means that we don't have to wait as long for the for the weak point to be in our view, which is obviously good. We get to start shooting him earlier, which is naturally fast, so that's nice. Like I said, this gives us the morph ball. Morph ball in this game is quite powerful. You can jump while you're in it. You have the option to do lots of kinds of coyote jumps using it, where if you come out of a tunnel and unmorph, you can like jump out of it and so on. So we're going to be using this one a lot. Tunnel movement in this game, when you're using the morph ball, is also a little bit weird. You're going to be seeing a lot of morphing, unmorphing, doing funny slides. Like right there, right? Like sliding there is just faster. Right here, by morphing over the fall block, you fall through it faster, and so on. There's a lot of little nuances to tunnel movement, and again, I'm definitely not doing it right 100% of the time, so don't take my gameplay as gospel. But there is a lot of cool little things to learn about tunnel movement in this game. Like right here, for example, I'm going to actually unmorph, slide, and then immediately remorph, because you move faster while sliding than just while rolling as the ball. But I want to immediately remorph again because that interrupts my slide, and if I hold back while I'm remorphing, it actually also just fully stops my momentum again. So if I do that right when I hit the missile pack, I won't like keep sliding and overshoot, and I can turn around sooner, which is great because I want to go back to this teleporter, right? So that type of stuff you're going to be seeing in tunnels, which is pretty cool. I got a little bit more of that coming up right here out of the teleporter, where we're going to like slide down and then slide through this tunnel rather than even turning into the morph ball at all. So yeah, that type of stuff's really cool. You're going to be seeing, again, a wide variety of tiny little optimizations that I'm not going to bother pointing out most of the time. Something I learned recently, just a tiny movement thing that's coming up, is in this next room I'm going to actually jump into this tunnel. I knew that, but I'm also going to morph in a way that sort of weirdly snags on that ledge, which I didn't know was actually possible there. So that's pretty cool. Lots of little things like that I've learned recently that I'll try to point out as we go, because again, this video is sort of supposed to be like a progress report of sorts. Even if, again, I don't think the run that I'm commentating over was really anything special for the most part. It's like a minute behind my PB. It's fine. It's not embarrassing, but it's not amazing. Right here, there's also a little bit of new movement. I don't know that I'm actually going to get any of it, but I'm going to try to do this wall jump and then shoot these blocks rather than sort of wall jumping off of both walls in a slightly different way. It's hard to explain. Anyway, now that everything has fallen apart and exploded, we can move on with our lives. We're going to get the Varia suit. This is a big one. This one's going to make us immune to heat, of course. If you're familiar with the Metroid series, you'll know that. So we need the Varia suit to make our way through. Mostly Cataris has a lot of heat rooms, and there's still some stuff we need to do in there. So unfortunately, gotta make that happen. Cataris and Dairon both have a good amount of heat rooms. So heat rooms are signified by this big orange glow. So if we were in here without the Varia suit, we'd be taking continuous damage. And I believe that damage would actually increase over time as well. So it's a whole... very dangerous, right? You don't want to do that. So we do actually need this item to beat the game. There are routes for any % unrestricted that wouldn't just even get the suits at all. Either of them. Just don't need them. It's totally possible to beat the game suitless on the earlier versions, and with the most broken glitches you can do that. But unfortunately not for us. We need to get both the Varia and the gravity suits in order to actually be able to finish the game. Now, with the Varia suit, we're going to go back to the red teleporter and immediately get out of Artaria again and go back to Cataris. Gee, you see what I'm saying about sort of bouncing around for the first like 30 minutes here. Game's going to sort of expand its scope a little bit later. For right now, I'm going to do another one of those morphs over a fall block to sort of get insane amounts of momentum downwards. I love that. It's so fun. I'm going to mess up that jump and fall in the lava. I'm sure Samus thanks me for that one. And then we're going to do a couple damage boosts here to actually just get through these enemies, because they have a lot of health, so killing them takes a while. Fastest way to actually kill them is just to parry their attack, and then kill them with the parry one-shot. But, you know, why do that when you could just run through them? I also run Dread mode for this category, and in that run we'd have to kill all of those guys, and it takes like 20 seconds, and it's super annoying. Anyway. We are now arrived at Kraid, and this is another place where I learned something new that I'm going to get to show off. So I learned recently that you can actually sort of position yourself in this fight in such a way that it's pretty easy to hit Kraid's upper jaw with charge shots if he's doing his big vomiting attack right here. So I'm going to forget about it for a second there and keep firing missiles. But then I'm going to do it, and you can see that's sort of pretty easy to actually get those in there and actually deal damage with. So that's really nice. Then I'm going to use Turbo to deal a lot of damage to him so that he'll let me up. And then we're just going to continue from here. We're just going to keep hitting him with missiles and trying not to fall down. Now, I believe I actually do fall down. I think I mess up really bad on this one, if I remember correctly. I remember it not being a particularly good fight. I'm not sure if I fall down, but in any event, maybe not a great fight, but that's okay. I got to show off the new thing. So, no, I didn't even fall. Never mind. It is totally fine. Not that big of a deal. Sort of a slow first phase, but that's alright. Defeating Kraid gives us the Diffusion Beam. Diffusion Beam is an upgrade to the Charge Beam. It's going to make it so that our Charge Beam shots now explode on impact. So that increases their damage as well as their effective range. It also means they can damage groups of enemies at a time, but it also mostly means that they can shoot certain things through walls. So I'm struggling a little bit there for a second to actually do it. But we can now shoot some of these sort of more nearby blocks through walls without even needing to do any glitches. which is cool. But that doesn't mean we won't be doing any more pseudo waves, because this only works on blocks that are really nearby the edge of a wall, right? And so we're still going to want to shoot some blocks that are a little bit further away. So pseudo wave fans still have some fun stuff in store for them, maybe like 20 minutes from now. So don't worry about that. Anyway, you'll have seen me do a little bit of weird movement involving the charge beam this entire time up until this point, and I haven't mentioned it, but this will be a good opportunity. It's called an instant charge, where if you start charging a charge beam and then cause Samus to spin, well, I can show it right here. You can sort of let the charge beam fly while she's spinning, and it'll be fully charged even though it hasn't actually had enough time to charge. You can do that a couple different ways, either by actually doing like a spin jump or a respin, or by just simply spinning Samus around in place, left to right, on the ground, right? So like right here. So it's a very useful way to sort of just cut down a little bit on the time that it takes to charge a charge shot, which is obviously useful. Now I sort of glossed over what we did just now. We just did a sequence break called Early Grapple Beam, where I use coyote jumps to make it over that big lake of lava. A coyote jump, if you're not familiar, is where you get a little bit of extra time when you actually run off of a ledge to jump, even though you're already in the air. It's just a little forgiving mechanic to just make the game a little bit more forgiving, right? Easier to play. It's a very common thing in 2D platformers, very normal mechanic. But in this game in particular, if you slide off of a ledge, you actually get a lot of coyote time. The entire time that the slide animation continues to play, you're still allowed to do a jump, so a coyote jump. And so we use that in that room to make it over that big lava lake, because it just gives us just barely that extra bit of reach on 2 separate occasions to actually be able to make those jumps. We've been doing them constantly. They're very useful for just bits of movement here and there in general. So it's nothing new. I've been doing it this entire time. But again, you know, it's hard to actually mention everything when you're going sort of in this non-scripted, real-time format. I'm sort of digressing a little bit, but I usually like to, like I said, do these sort of slightly higher effort edited videos with like little couple of minutes at a time of commentary that I've planned out in advance. I really like to make those. I think they're a lot of fun, but I just simply don't have the time. Doing a video like that for a run of this length would probably take me maybe a day or two. And unfortunately, the deadline for submitting to BSG Plus, like I said, you know, like this is for, is unfortunately today at midnight. So I am under a little bit of time pressure, so I didn't want to do that. But oh well. Let me drink a little bit more water here. So, stay hydrated, by the way. Yes, you. No, so we're doing early grapple again, basically. It looks a little different backwards. It's much easier backwards. But we're just going back to where we were before. But now we're heading west. So we came from up north there, right? But now we're heading west. With the grapple beam in tow, we are going to make our way through part of the Emmy zone in Dyron here. That's an example of a little coyote jump using the mock ball, or using the morph ball, by the way, where I unmorphed out of that little tunnel, and that gave me a little bit of coyote time to actually jump up and then grapple beam that surface. Very cool trick. Well, trick. Very cool thing. I'm gonna just shoot these guys very clean. That was only like frames away from hitting me. But yeah, these are more dark rooms. We've seen this before, right before we got the wide beam. So we need to press one of these like power stations to turn the whole business back on so we can fucking see where we're going. But mostly so that the doors will be active so we can actually go where we're going. So yeah, having done that, the enemies will unfortunately respawn, so I have to do the same thing again. And this time we're going to head up to the door on the right that was previously not open, but is now. I believe I get hit here. Nope, alright, sweet. So this door wouldn't have been openable before. We needed the power to be on for that. And that gets us the bombs! Yay! Bombs, classic Metroid item. They're just gonna let us... Well, I guess they let you fight as the morph ball. You probably shouldn't do that, but I guess you can. But really, they let us blow up bomb blocks. And that's really important. There's bomb blocks everywhere and in really annoying places. So we need the bombs in order to beat the game. And more than that, we're actually also going to use the bombs to do a couple of sequence breaks later on. So keep an eye out for that. I'll tell you when we get there. Having the bombs now, we are going to use them to make our way through these like bomb tunnels. You just deadass need bombs to activate them to get down here. And doing that, we're going to finally exit the Artaria, Cataris, Dyron trifecta. And we're going to make our way to Berenia, our next region. Fun fact about the regions in this game, they're actually the first couple letters of the alphabet. Artaria, Berenia, Cataris, Dyron, Elon, Ferenia, Gavoran, Hanubia, Itorash. They don't quite come in that order in the way that you would play the game casually or in the speedrun. But, you know, fun fact, in case you'd never realized it, it's actually the first, what, how many letters is that? 8? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. 9. First 9 letters of the alphabet. I actually had to count that on my fingers. Not a mathematician. Anyway, Berenia is gorgeous. It is also very wet, and unfortunately we move slowly in water. So this is a little bit of a classic frustrating water level type thing, but it's actually a lot of fun to do, I think. The movement here is quite satisfying once you get good at it. Another one of those cool little unmorph jumps. I love those. I'm going to use the Phantom Cloak for its intended purpose there to avoid that big laser beam enemy. And we're just going to roll on through here to make our way further. This is one of those visits where we're just popping in very briefly for one item. We're really just here to get the flash shift and then get out. So I'm going to grab onto this and keep on moving. And we've got a bit of tunnel movement ahead of us. Like I said, tunnel movement is sort of inscrutable. It's a little bit weird. I'm not actually sure what the best movement here is. I still need to review that. I'm pretty sure what I do is pretty good, but I need to actually think about that a little more. Think about that one a little bit more. There we go. Here we're going to do another coyote jump to get over that cactus. It's pretty cool. And I'm just going to... Ah, dang it. I grabbed onto the ledge on accident. That movement looks really smooth if you actually sort of get the weave in between the platforms right. But I, messed it up. What do you do? Using the grapple beam, we can blow up some of these barricades to make our way over to this room where the flash shift is. So there's actually another way in here. You can use the bombs to do this fucked up little bomb jump up on that pressure pad up at the top to actually get in here through the top, which saves a little bit of time. That's something I intend to learn eventually, but I haven't yet. Flash shift is a very important item. The flash shift lets us move very quickly back and forth horizontally, almost instantaneously, by expending Aeon energy. And now we really don't have any other uses for Aeon energy. It's just that and the Phantom Cloak. So really it's mostly just the flash shift. Pardon me. Jeez. Got something stuck in my throat there. No, but so the flash shift is going to be very important. Unfortunately, we can't use it underwater. So we're still a little bit of a slow boy underwater right now. But, or slow girl. But the flash shift just fundamentally, it goes fast, right? So naturally, we really like that in the speedrun. So we're going to be using that just absolutely everywhere, just to speed up our movement. And we are also going to use it for like tiny little sequence breaks here and there, like funny little bits of movement that look a little bit unusual. There's a lot of cool stuff to do with the flash shift. Where was I going? Oh yeah. So we're going back to Dyron right now, but this is a different transport from the one that we used to get here. So we're sort of entering in this like lower down, I guess more southern, as I've been calling it, part of Dyron, where we're actually going to be able to get a central unit and defeat the Emmy, as you know, as the formula goes. And so we needed the flash shift to get there. But we're going to get immediately, as our next item, another very important fastness item, a speed item, which is the speed booster, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It boosts your speed, which is naturally, again, very good for speedrunning, right? Goes fast. We like going fast. That's good. The speed booster is a little bit less sort of generally applicable in the flash shift. You're going to be seeing me flash shift absolutely everywhere, but the speed booster takes a little time to like warm up or start up. And so you can't really use it everywhere because some rooms just deadass don't have enough room to get the speed booster going. And even if they do, you need a good bit of extra room beyond that to actually take advantage of the speed that you get in order to make it worth it over the flash shift, right? Because if you could just have flash shifted through the room, that might have actually been faster in a lot of cases. So the speed booster is a little bit more narrow in its application, but we will be using it, and it is still quite good. Mostly because it allows us to do shine sparks. And if you've never played any other Metroid games before, you might not know what that is. It's a little bit less intuitive. It's a thing that the speed booster does in most Metroid games, where if you charge up and get to full running speed, and then just press down, you will charge up all of your energy. You'll stop in place and charge up all this energy. And then you can press jump to go rocketing off in whatever direction. It sort of depends on which game you're playing, what directions you're actually allowed to go in. In this game, basically all of them. You can go diagonally, you can go straight down, straight up, horizontal. You can even shine spark while in the morph ball, and so on. So you have a lot of freedom with it. And so that part is going to be especially useful. There's a couple rooms like this one that are just like tailor-made for the speed booster, where we're really going to get to abuse it. But on the whole, it's not going to show up all that much. But there we charged up a shine spark, then did a shine spark into a slope, which gets you back up to full speed immediately. Charged another shine spark to rocket up through that shaft. That's very cool, and that's very much by design. But we're also going to do it in some slightly less orthodox places, if you will, where it's going to be pretty cool. And that's actually coming up very, very shortly. So that's nice. What was I going to say? Goodness gracious. The Shine Spark also is actually an attack. You're mostly invincible while in the Speed Booster / Shine Spark. Not quite, but mostly. And if you touch most regular enemies in either state, they'll just die. But the Shine Spark in particular actually also does damage to bosses. And quite a lot, I might add. So we're going to be using the Shine Spark wherever possible on bosses from here on out, because it'll make them go a lot faster. So that's nice. Very happy to have that. Speed Booster is again a little bit more narrow than the Flash Shift, but having both of these items now, the game really, as it were, shifts into overdrive. We are now just capable of going so much faster than we were before. So that's really going to help us out. So right here, like I said, this is some slightly unorthodox Speed Booster shenanigans. I'm going to just go on up here and then whee, right up to the top of that room so that I don't have to use the grapple beam. Because if I had to use the grapple beam, I would have to clear out those fishies first. So we don't want to do that. Instead, we just Shine Spark up there. I'm going to do... This is actually another new strat that I learned actually only yesterday. Where I'm going to just do some slightly different movement than I used to in order to charge Shine Sparks here. That it's just like slightly faster than the older strat. Which is nice. Unfortunately, I messed it up. Right, I didn't actually charge a Shine Spark on the second attempt there, and so I have to do it again. But that's our first example of just Shine Sparks dispatching bosses very quickly. The robot chose a soldier there, 2 Shine Sparks, and it drops. So we're very happy to see that. I get a little assist from the fishies to actually make it up to that ledge. That was a little bit awkward, but hey, we made it to the top, didn't we? So having done that, we're going to take a different elevator back down into Dyron again. This is, again, one of those cases where we're just in Farenia for one thing real quick. I didn't even mention that we were going here. The cutscenes that I skipped around that boss fight showed a big scary door opening in Barenia. And so that's why we had to go into Farenia to trigger that. And now we're going just immediately back to Barenia to actually go through that door and take advantage of that. Pardon me. Oh, gee. I took a sip of water, and it's not agreeing with me. Excuse me. Okay. Anyway. Jeez. This movement right here didn't go so great. This is a slightly different route through this visit to Dyron that I didn't actually used to do until, oh, I don't know, maybe like half a year ago. And I've still never really properly reviewed that movement, so I've still not got the hang of it. Hey, look at that Spike go. Goodbye, Spike. Sometimes projectiles and stuff that enemies fire off can actually go through doors if you time it right. And it'll look funny like that. Now, as I was saying, in Barinia, there's this big door that's now open. So we're just going to make our way over there. And so we're going to have to go through a few rooms we've already been through, but mostly new stuff. And in there, we're going to do a bunch of speed booster movement, because we have that now. So we're going to do some very fancy things involving the speed booster and shine sparks, which is really cool. Right here, I'm just going to use the speed booster because it's fast. I like to do something funny here called Petty Spark, but I didn't actually do it on this run, so forget about that. But then, I'm going to use the speed booster right here to actually just outspeed the laser guy fully, instead of even using the Phantom Cloak, and then charge a Shine Spark to Ball Spark right through that tunnel, which is really nice. I'm going to just hop on up here, get another speed booster, ram straight through both of these guys, charge a Shine Spark, grab this door, open it up, jump through, flash shift over, turn into a ball, and Ball Spark through this tunnel to make it past another laser guy, without him even seeing us at all, because he wasn't actually awake yet. All of that is very satisfying to pull off. It's a little bit harder than it looks, but it's mostly just very cool. This right here is another pseudo wave. I got it immediately first try, very good. That one we actually have like a setup for with the menu, right? You saw that. So that one's actually a lot easier than the ones that we did at the start of the run. That one is one of my personal favorites because it's got that, like I was talking about when we first got the diffusion beam, it's got that cool factor of actually using the diffusion beam to extend our reach at like this particular angle to actually hit the block. Where like if you shoot too close to the block, the diffusion beam will blow up in such a way that it doesn't hit it. You have to hit this very particular part of the floor, where sort of the spread of the pattern of the diffusion beam will be in the correct direction to hit the block. It's very cool. It's not super difficult, but it's very cool conceptually. I'm going to do another little bit of speed booster shafuckery here, where I'm going to just open up this door, and then I'm going to run up this slope, whee, and then grab onto that. Very, very fun to do. And then, very similar, immediately I'm just going to charge another speed booster. This is similar to what we did before, where I'm going to just Shine Spark this boss as soon as it spawns in. Unfortunately, in this room, there's not actually enough room to charge a Shine Spark anywhere. Asterisk, there's a glitch you can do, but we're not going to. So instead, for the rest of this guy's health, we're just going to have to use missiles. He's not all that tough, but it does just waste a little bit of our time. So, alas. You'll note that that guy was basically just the same boss fight as that earlier robot soldier. He just has more health and does more damage because he's got gold plating on him now. You know, otherwise it's the same. We're going to actually be fighting 2 more like those. Well, 4 more total. But 2 more of those fights, now with 2 soldiers, wow, a little bit later, so look out for that. Anyway, right here I'm just using the flash shift in tandem with like the morph ball and like particular tunnel movement and so on to make our way through to get the super missiles. Now I always love to complain about the super missiles when I do these sorts of commentaries because they're kind of bad. They do more damage than the regular missiles, but they have a really bad rate of fire. So enemies that have a high enough amount of health actually would be better off. You'd be better off just using regular missiles on them. Unfortunately, we don't have regular missiles anymore. Unlike in most games, the super missiles are just fully a replacement. So I'm going to actually try my best not to fire any more super missiles, more or less this entire run. We're only really supposed to use 4, and we've already used 3 of those. So, only 1 more, ideally, coming up. Now that gets us to the miniature region Elon. It's just this little plot-focused area. You just go through it, get 1 item, and leave. Never any reason really to come back here, at least not in any percent, of course. Maybe in hundo, but... Elon is actually a very fun bit of movement. I enjoy it a lot. We're going to do a lot of cool flash shift stuff, and there's a lot of cutscenes, so we get to, like, fully expend our flash shift going into a cutscene, and then we'll just have it back once we've skipped the cutscene. So sort of get to refresh it almost faster than you would normally. So like right here, which is kind of cool. So there's a lot of funny little things here that I like to do. There's also a lot of difficult things. There's like funny jumps over enemies and stuff, so you can avoid getting hit by them and so on. A lot of which is not easy, and a lot of which is going to mess up. But so be it. You can also like flash shift, respin, morph, bomb, jump, flash shift again. Whee! It's that kind of thing is very satisfying. There, you know, I messed up jumping over that guy, for instance. And same here. That one actually did go a little better than the first one. Anywho, doing all that stuff, we now make it to the plasma beam. And again, in Elon, you know, plot stuff is happening. There's these cutscenes that are telling us, like, oh no, the X parasites, they're infecting everything. And so from here on out, basically every enemy we fight is actually going to be an X-infected version of the enemies that we've seen before. Or, you know, entirely new enemies for that matter. Which means that they do usually like do more damage and have more health and stuff. The game sort of upgrades the monsters right here. But beyond that, it also means that they drop more health and ammo when defeated. So it sort of balances out. It's nice. Now right here in this boss fight, the infected Chozo soldier, we get to show off that new 21 hertz turbo cap again. This guy just dies so fast to just shooting him, which is wonderful. I will definitely need to get used to the new turbo, because it means that the strats for some of these later bosses are a little bit different. But anyway, in Elon, we got the plasma beam, sort of forgot to mention. Plasma beam increases our damage, and it makes it so that our beam pierces through enemies, so we can hit multiple enemies in a row, if that's ever convenient. Mostly, it just increases our damage and allows us to open plasma beam doors. Who'da thunk it? It's really, again, sort of just a door opener, but this one does increase our damage output very significantly. But because it happens at the same time that the enemies in the game sort of level up, you maybe don't super feel it. Everything sort of stays the same in the end, except for like a couple of times later on where we're going to revisit some early areas with some weak enemies where the plasma beam is just going to obliterate them. Right here, I'm gonna get a speed booster to just jump through this big floating whale thing and over into this door. And a damage boost off this guy to then go through the other guy, because that's faster that way. And then we're just gonna flash shift on over. We've been here before. This is how we went through Gabaran earlier, but this time the Emmy is active again. And so we also have the plasma beam, so we can open plasma beam doors, so we can make our way on over through up into here. Now here's where we're going to do that sequence break I was talking about with bombs. Normally you wouldn't be able to bomb jump that high underwater, but by setting it up to where you essentially make the game remember a position that you have when you use a bomb jump. Oh, forget underwater bomb jumps. It's a whole thing, and I'll be honest, I don't fully know how it works. Did you see how close I was with that Shine Spark? The second I came out of the Shine Spark, I got hit. That's how close it was. But it didn't hit it. Meaning that I had to blow up the shell of the central unit with super missiles. And that's really slow. Like I was talking about, the super missiles are kind of bad. That was really, really disappointing. Oh well. As per usual, defeating the central unit gives us the Omega Cannon. That's going to let us kill Moran right here, the blue Emmy. And I've set this up a little bit weirdly. I shouldn't actually necessarily be this close to the edge with where I'm standing. It's not really going to super matter. It just means that it's a little bit harder to see because the camera is a little more zoomed in on sort of where Moran is. And unfortunately, that means I did mess it up very slightly. I'm supposed to wait just a little bit longer for her to get a little bit closer before I actually finish the job, so that she'll fall on the right side of this platform that we're standing on right now, because that's where we're trying to go. So I'd rather the cutscene play over there. It'd be a little bit faster that way, right? She'd have fallen like out like below that ledge on the right side here, which would have been nice. But oh well, it's really only going to make a fraction of a second worth of difference, so forget it. that gives us the ice missile. So after that whole fiasco there, we will never need to think about the super missiles again. They have been, again, completely replaced. And the ice missiles are actually very good. These do yet more damage, and their fire rate is more or less back to what it used to be. So these are quite good, actually. And they also have the ice property, so they can blow up these mushroom things, and they can like freeze enemies, and then you can use them as platforms. It's a whole... It's super cool, honestly. I love this item a lot. Ice missiles, a personal favorite. With the ice missiles, we can make our way over to this transport to Farenia. We've been in Farenia before to take care of that robot Chozo soldier way back when. About, like, I don't know, 15 minutes ago. But for right now, we're actually going to a very different part of the place, and we're going to be getting the space jump. We're going to do a cool sequence break involving some complicated wall jumps to get that item. And normally this wouldn't necessarily be super useful. The space jump all by itself doesn't really do too much until you get into like the real late game. But getting the space jump early like this also allows us to then get the screw attack early. And that's really going to help us out. So that's sort of why we're here in the grand scheme of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump, I'm going to lay a bomb, then I'm going to respin, wall jump back, slide jump, morph bomb, jump, wall jump, morph bomb, unmorph, spin, wall jump, grab onto the ledge, jump again, wall jump into the corner, or into the tunnel, right when the first block reforms to land on top of it and make it up. It's very fast, it's very difficult, and I've spent a long time getting very good at this trick. Now there's an alternative, and it's sort of a personal preference which one you like. The alternative is faster, and I feel like, from what I've heard, it's more consistent for most people, but opinions are divided. The alternative would be that you do a pseudo-wave setup to hit that block that's just gone off screen again, and actually fall down sort of through the back entrance, if you will, from the top. But I never really got that to work. I don't like it. I've stuck with the bomb strat. I like that one a lot, and I got quite good at it early on when the game first came out. Because we've known about that trick for a long time. A lot of the things that I'm doing here are quite old. The route that I'm doing isn't necessarily the most up-to-date. It's just what I've learned to do, what I like to do. And a lot of the more modern routes also incorporate a lot of more difficult tricks that I haven't gotten the hang of yet or haven't bothered to look into or whatever. So I'm still doing this one. And it's not like that's like a big thing. It's not holding me back super far or anything, if that's something you're thinking about. This route is still perfectly reasonable. And there's people with much faster times than myself still on this route. So not embarrassing. Anyway, now that we have the space jump, like I said, our next goal is just to get the screw attack, so we're going to make our way over to where that is as fast as we can, and that's going to mean we're going to speed boost on over whee, through a whole section of rooms in Dyron. That's an extremely satisfying sequence to do, to make our way to this portal that's going to get us to Artaria, which is where the screw attack is. So we're sort of doing this same old thing of just like bouncing around of like, oh, Farenia, screw attack, go through Dyron to get to Artaria, or get the space jump from Farenia, go to Artaria to get the screw attack. Yeah, you know, the whole thing, which is brilliant. That's just the way that the whole game progresses, right? And it's wonderful. I really love this game a lot. Anyway, on the way to the screw attack, there's a tiny little bit of new movement that I learned. You'll see in a minute, I'm going to try to damage boost off of an enemy inside a very small tunnel in order to actually pop out on the other side of it without getting blocked by said enemy. That's going to save like a second, maybe less. But it is pretty cool, and it's one of the only things in this section that I've actually learned recently. So thought I'd mention it. It'll be just a second until you see it, but right here we're going to need to do a lot of damage boosting through cold rooms. This is why we've been picking up energy tanks throughout the game. Here's that damage boost I was talking about. Didn't quite get it entirely right, but sort of got like the middle ground version of it. Anyway, all of these cold rooms you'd normally be expected to go through once you acquire the gravity suit to make you immune to cold. But we don't want to wait. We need the screw attack now. In fact, we're going to use the screw attack to get to the gravity suit rather than the other way around. And so, excuse me, lost my train of thought. We're doing more underwater bomb jumps, by the way, to actually get up here. And also a screwed up little trick where we use the space jump underwater, rubbing up against a wall to actually gain height and pop up out of the water. That's why we needed the space jump to make this happen. It's really weird that you can do that, but it's part of how this game's collision works, and it sort of functions similarly to how we've done like Magus skip and pressure pad skip and Atom save skip much earlier in the run, where Samus, when she presses against collision in this game, it doesn't just stop your momentum, it actually adds to it in a different direction. And so you can abuse that to do a variety of fancy little things. You'd have to ask somebody who knows more about how the game works from like a coding perspective than I do to really figure out sort of how that works, but that's the gist of it, right? So anyway, we now have the screw attack. In case you don't know what that does, it makes us fucking invincible. When we're spinning, we can just sort of mow through enemies. It does a lot of damage, instantly kills most things, and again, makes us immune to most things. It's not super useful against a lot of bosses. A lot of bosses are actually immune to it, but not all, and we will use it on some bosses. But a lot of bosses are immune to it, and so when you hit a boss with the screw attack, even if they're not immune to it, if they don't die to it, you will still just take damage, because you'll like bump off them, and you will take contact damage, but so will they. So a lot of the time that's still worth it. Some bosses are just fully immune to it, so then it's just you taking damage, in which case maybe that's not so worth it. But, and as always, the screw attack also allows us to break screw attack blocks. And so that's something that we're actually a little bit more concerned with, maybe. Like I said, we're going to use that to get to the gravity suit. And this right here is sort of the main section, like I was talking about way back when, like 40 minutes ago, where we're just going to take several transporters in a row. And so it's just a whole bunch of waiting with tiny little bits of movement in between. So it's, I always, for marathons, this is kind of great because it's like a fantastic time to just run like several donations in a row, or like plugs or what have you. But if you're just like sitting in your room at like 10 p.m., just like after a work day, just like chilling, doing some speed runs because it's fun, and then you just like sat there for like 2 minutes, it's a little boring. I tend to, in this section, I tend to grab my phone and open Tumblr or something, and maybe that speaks to my attention span, right? But it is a bit of a thing. Some more funny tunnel movement right there. Didn't do it perfectly, but little things. Just like morphing here, unmorphing there, laying a bomb there, then unmorphing so that you don't get popped up by the bomb, and so on. It's a lot of fun. I like that bit. That is one of the harder sections of tunnel movement because it's so long. There's a lot of like different things to do. I'm not very good at it. I need to actually review that as well. But it's fun. Then a cool shine spark through the water to get to this teleporter. Right, you saw that. We could have just space jumped over, but the shine spark's faster. Now this teleporter is actually going to get us to Barinia, where the gravity suit is. So we're finally done. You can put Tumblr away now. What was I saying? I don't remember. It's fine. So I'm going to use some bombs to break open these blocks in the right here. I'm going to use the ice missiles to blow up these mushrooms. And I'm going to charge a shine spark. Now there's a way to charge this shine spark that will both charge a shine spark and simultaneously destroy the blocks below your feet. Unfortunately, I screwed it up, and so I only got to destroy the blocks, so I'll need to charge the shine spark again. Because we need this shine spark to go over here. to make it over this whole section, and then speed boost right on through these blocks to sort of get to the gravity suit. I don't know if this is technically backwards, but I'm not sure if it's the intended way either. I genuinely don't remember what the game looks like casually, dude. I have no idea. Blow up that block to make it through the tunnel, and then just climb up here, and then do some very interesting movement because you forget to unmorph, and then blow up several different types of blocks to get this container to fall. That breaks open this bridge, allowing us access into the room with the gravity suit in it. Now, the gravity suit's a very simple upgrade. Like I said earlier, it makes you immune to cold, but also it just turns off water. Water no longer obstructs us. It no longer slows us down. It no longer disables any of our items, like the flash shift, anything like that. We can just be in water, and it makes zero difference. So that's nice. We're going to immediately use that to get a Shine Spark in water, so that we can, yahoo, all the way up to the top here. I'm going to grab this last missile pack just to make sure that I've got enough. 72 is maybe a little bit overkill, but I like the difference between 60 and 70 on the final boss. I feel like that extra 10 actually does make a pretty big difference, so I'm choosing to do it. Once again, the higher turbo cap that happened just yesterday is quite useful here, because the screw attack is better damage than the plasma beam on these guys, like in a vacuum, but when they're both standing directly in front of each other, the plasma beam, because it hits both of them, is actually better. And so with the added turbo cap now, it's a lot better. It's a lot of damage to just hit them both with the plasma beam at once. So I tried to set it up to where I sort of got to maximize that a little bit. There's a little bit of RNG to it, depending on what attacks they do and stuff. So it's a little bit difficult to control sometimes. And that boss fight, again, is sort of on my list of things that I want to review and get better at and learn new strats for. But that's the basic idea, right? Anytime you get the chance, you just want to hit them both with gunfire. It'll speed it up significantly. Now, taking the green warp again, now that we have the gravity suit, we're going to make our way on up top. And there's going to immediately be another boss fight. Now, this one sucks. This is going to be Golzuna. This is a boss fight that's very difficult. I just recently learned a cool new strat for this boss fight. Unfortunately, I'm going to mess it up. So I have to do a backup here. So I'm going to try to count out until I can start speed boosting, but I screw it up. And so I have to speed boost backwards, charge another Shine Spark, wait for the big crab to get all the way in the corner, then go over, hit it in the back, charge another speed boost, there we go, and then jump over one last time and hit it again. Then I can also take care of the Korax. It's sort of this little mini boss after the boss. So that was a well-executed backup for the most part. It was a little slow on like activating some of the Shine Sparks, but whatever. Mostly good. But what I really want to do is this faster strat where I can actually kill sort of the first phase there with the speed booster itself, not the Shine Spark, and then use that first Shine Spark on the big boss. And it's really cool. I forgot that I fell all the way down here. That's really embarrassing. Oh my god. Good save, though, on that tunnel. That was kind of cool. You gotta give it up for that. Anyway, Golzuna's a fun boss to like learn strats for and optimize. It's very fast, very satisfying when you do it well, but it is very difficult. So I tend to lose a little bit of time there. Defeating Golzuna gave us the cross bombs, which we used to get through that room, difficult though it was. Cross bombs, notoriously dysfunctional item. Kind of just don't really work at a fundamental level a lot of the time. They're supposed to let you like cross over these gaps and things, and they just don't really work for that. We're only going to use them a handful of times, but luckily they have some redeeming qualities in that they do a good amount of damage to the final boss, specifically. So we're actually going to use them there to great effect. So cross bomb fans will have their time, 15 minutes from now. A bit less. Now, having done that, the main reason we actually need to go kill Golzuna at all is because he just fully blocks the way to Hanubia, and we need to go here. So we do need the cross bombs in Farinia in just a minute, but like mostly we just wanted to be able to progress. Period. Cross bombs or no, we needed to kill Golzuna. So that's how it is. Hanubia here is sort of the last real region of the game, but we only make a very brief visit right now. We're going to make a longer visit in a minute. But right now we just want to head back down into the north end of Farenia to go and finally take care of the Farenia Emmy, which we haven't actually seen at all yet. He was in a cutscene that we skipped when we fought the first Robot Chozo soldier, but other than that, we haven't seen him yet. So that's our goal right now. But in order to do that, we're first going to need to acquire another item, the storm missiles. So we're going to do that first. Right here, I'm going to charge a speed booster to help sort of line up a cool jump over those blocks. Those are screw attack blocks, so we need the screw attack to actually break through that. And by jumping sort of like that, you can do it a little faster. Then we're just going to try and optimize the flash shift in these next couple of rooms. It's going to get us into the Emmy zone. And now things are getting a little dicey because the Emmy is sort of right here. I got lucky. He spawned a good ways away, and so it's pretty easy for me to both avoid him and his eyesight. Because the Farenia Emmy has notably long eyesight, and he can see straight through walls. So it's very easy to get spotted and for the doors to lock. And then you have to just stand in front of the doors and wait until he forgets about you, which just takes some time. So we'd rather he not see us at all. Anyway, with that, we've made it back out of the Emmy zone again and made it over to the boss that's going to give us that item I was talking about, the storm missiles. SQ. Now, SQ has a cool fast strat associated with her as well, just like Golzuna. But just like Golzuna, I'm unfortunately not going to get it on this run. So it's kind of sad, but so be it. What you're supposed to do is get behind her and kite her to do an attack such that you can sort of wedge yourself between her and the wall and just repeatedly hit her with the screw attack. But again, I messed that up, and so I just sort of have to hit her with the screw attack normally instead of going, which is sad. You would sort of like chainsaw her, basically. You're not supposed to have the screw attack for this fight. This is actually supposed to come before that. So it's definitely a little bit, I don't know, broken here. Right? It's a very good item to have, and it does a lot of damage to her. And unlike most bosses that you fight after getting the screw attack normally, she actually doesn't deal contact damage to you if you hit her with the screw attack. You know, Golzuna, for example, would do that. And so there's not really any penalty to it, and it does a lot of damage. So it's a good way to fight her, even if you don't actually get the fast strat. It's just a good way to do it. And similarly, we're going to have another pair of Robot Chozo soldiers. These ones are actually supposed to come first. These are supposed to come before the two golden ones that we fought earlier. So right here, there's one iron and one golden. You sort of see the progression here. But we're going to fight him in a very similar way. Just going to use a little bit of gunfire and mostly the screw attack to dispatch him. But in this case, we get the chance to actually charge a Shine Spark at the start. So that that iron robot really did not know what hit him. He died very fast. This is our last required use of the cross bombs. I'm not even sure if it's technically fully required. I think there might be like skips that you can do there. In fact, I'm quite confident there are. But it is faster to use the cross bombs there. It's also faster to use the cross bombs there, but not at all needed. And we're going to use the storm missiles. I sort of forgot to comment on those. The storm missiles were the item we got from SQ. They're this charged up version of the missiles that allow you to lock onto multiple targets at once and then fire this barrage of mini missiles. It's quite a cool ability. It's not actually super good though. The damage output is lackluster, the ammo consumption is ridiculous, and it's very slow to use. So we're only actually going to use it to do a little sequence break in the final boss fight, and that's it. This central unit dies faster than I can mention it. You Shine Spark the armor, then you screw attack the body, and it just drops. Now coming up, I'm going to try to do a fast strat on Fairy. That's the Farenia Emmy. Now that we have the central unit defeated, right, we can go fight the Emmy as per usual. And I'm going to line myself up into this little corner in a second, and try to just keep my eagle eye on the Emmy's faceplate and break it before he can actually reach me. Now this is quite tight. I believe I get it on this run. It's a very, very satisfying strat to do because it prevents us having to go through this whole little maze. It saves like 20 seconds. It's just fantastic. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Boom. Just like that. You only barely have enough time to do that. You can miss like 2 or 3 bullets in that entire sequence. So you really gotta do that well. Now there are backups for it. If you don't quite do it perfectly, you can like jump over him and then immediately start shooting him again from the other side and sort of like juke him that way. And so you can, there's a little bit of wiggle room, right? It's not one and done, do you get it or no? But I did just fully get it here, which is very, very fast. Very happy to see that. Now defeating Fairy finally gives us the wave beam, right? Fairy could see through walls, so now we can shoot through walls. Sort of all the enemies have sort of worked like that, where they introduce this new ability in their own abilities. So now that we have the wave beam, realistically we will never have to do any pseudo waves ever again, because you know we have the real thing now. So why would we? We can just shoot through walls straight up. And also, we can open wave beam doors. Yay! And also, it increases our damage. So, you know, our shots do a lot of damage now, which we are going to use to great effect on some upcoming bosses as well. There's 3 more bosses before the game is out. About 8 minutes left from here. So first thing, you know, we're going back up to Hanubia. Like I said, we're having a slightly longer visit here now. We're going to go back up through these 2 rooms that we used to come down to the elevator. And then we're going to head east to get to the first of those boss fights. That's going to be the Crimson Infected Chozo Soldier. You can see him jumping around in the background there. So we're going to head into the Emmy zone, and then there's this long cutscene where we get ambushed by the Emmy, but we kill it, and then the Chozo Soldier shows up, and it's the whole thing. We're not going to watch that. We're just going to fight the Chozo Soldier. Emmy's already dead in the background. And I unfortunately take a bunch of unnecessary damage and don't line up my shots correctly, so I actually lost a good bit of time on this fight. I'm not used to having this really high turbo cap, and it sort of changes the way that you need to think about the damage breakpoints for this. So I need to adjust to that a little bit still. Obviously, it only happened yesterday. But anyway, with that, the boss fight's over, and my turbo was a little bit screwed up there, so you saw me quickly go into the double home click zoom thing that the Switch is able to do, because the home button on my controller just says cancel all turbo right now. So that's very useful. The fact that I don't actually have to go into the home menu and pause the game, but I can just do a little zoom to do that is quite nice. Quite nice, actually. So that Emmy gives us the power bomb. This is the last real upgrade of the run. It's not particularly useful. It's just a big kaboom. It blows up power bomb blocks. It's really the only reason we have to care about it for the most part. Excuse me. So we're going to do that right here. These are power bomb blocks. And then I will jump on over, flash it through these couple rooms. Do it again. And now I'm actually going to shoot that robot before the power bomb detonates, because if the power bomb kills an enemy, they can't drop power bombs. Makes sense, right? So you can't just sort of farm it ad infinitum. But if you drop a power bomb and then shoot that enemy before the power bomb even goes off, then it can drop power bombs, and so you can refill fully up to 2 power bombs again, which is perfect for us to get through the rest of what we need to. So that's actually very convenient. I don't always get that. The timing is a little bit strict. But it's nice to see that I did get it here. Now, so, like I said, one more boss fight here before the final boss. This is the Golden Infected Chozo Soldier. It's the same boss for a 3rd time, but it has more health and more damage and more speed. Who'd have thunk it? But with the 20 Hz turbo, and this time not messing up with my damage boosts or my fast strats, this guy actually died quicker than Crimson, despite having significantly more health. So, good fight. Very good fight. Very happy to see that. And then we take our final elevator of the run, the Dragon Ball Space Capsule, up to Itorash, the final region. It's not really much of a region. There's just the final boss there, and that's it. But all the same. The final boss is going to involve something called Gold Skip. Phase 1 of Ravenbeak has a sort of mini phase within it where he goes invincible. He goes fully gold-plated, and he can't take damage for a while. And we're going to skip that phase by hitting him with very particular damage breakpoints. where we're just going to pump him full of missiles and bombs and shit until he does this parryable attack, at which point we will charge up some storm missiles and hit him with those, just barely in time to still go into the like parry cutscene thing, which will give us just enough damage to actually skip right ahead into phase 2 without the invincibility ever triggering. So it looks very cool. I'm going to just show it off, obviously. I remember I got it this run, so it should be pretty cool. So I'm just going to hit him with a bunch of bombs and missiles and shit. And then he's going to zoom on over to the left side, and he's going to do this big blast. And we're getting an opportunity to parry him. And I'll charge 2 ticks of the storm missile, and then immediately until he's dead. This trick became a little bit easier because of the 20 Hz turbo cap now. We can just... I'm not even sure. Maybe we don't even need to do the storm missiles anymore with 20 Hz turbo. Maybe you can just kill him. Or phase 1. I'm not super confident. Anyway, here in phase 2, he's flying around. He's kind of hard to aim on. It's a little annoying, but I'm doing my best. Storm missiles, or ice missiles, rather, are the best source of damage for this, for the most part. Technically, if you have a really good aim, I think just using wave beam and maybe weaving in some missiles every once in a while is probably better. But if your aim isn't quite that consistent, you might want to just use missiles instead, which is what I like to do. And here in phase 3, now that he's back on the ground, we can use cross bombs again. And like I was saying earlier, the cross bombs actually do a very significant amount of damage to this boss. So I'm just going to damage tank through a bunch of this stuff as well, just to be able to hit him with more cross bombs. Like right here, I'm just going to lay some cross bombs in the corner, and he's going to take an absolute metric ton of damage. And so will I, but that's fine, because, you know, once I do enough damage to him, the fight just ends. So that's fine. 11 energy left on me, so very dicey, but a pretty good fight overall. Phase 2 was a little bit scuffed, but the other 2 phases were pretty good. Pretty happy with that. So that just leaves the escape, and first there's this big pseudo cutscene where we have to shoot this monstrous creature, Ravenbeak X. I'm gonna do something funny. I'm gonna actually not shoot it for a little while. I'm going to charge up my gun most of the way. I'm just going to wait until it gets close, and then I'm going to start shooting it, because you don't actually need to shoot this guy the entire time. The way that his health works is like calculated based on distance and time that you've been shooting him, and it's weird. I don't fully know how it works, but suffice to say that he slows down if you shoot him, but you do want him to get a certain distance closer to you, where he won't actually get to you, and you can kill him without like needing to wait extra long because he moves slower while you're shooting him. So like you just let him climb for a little while, and then you start. It's a cool little thing. Just saves a couple of seconds there. So yeah, now in the escape, you know, we have the Metroid suit and the hyper beam. We no longer have the flash shift, so don't at me if you don't see me using it. I'm not stupid. We just don't have it anymore. But the Metroid suit and the hyper beam, it makes us immune to everything, makes everything die when we touch it, and it allows us to blow up any kind of enemies, blocks, whatever, with the beam. So we can just sort of tear through here, make our way out before the planet explodes. Classic Metroid shenanigans. So I'm going to actually do some speed booster stuff here. I'm just going to get a shine spark, and I'm going to ball spark specifically because if I real spark, it'll trigger this little cutscene that takes a little bit extra long, so we don't want to do that, of course. I'm going to do another speed booster to try and like make it all the way up to the end of the game with the speed boost, but I will bonk my head into the ceiling and fail miserably, so I just have to walk up there. But that's that. 122.34. Totally reasonable run, like I said, about a minute behind my PB, a little bit more. But we actually lost like a minute just on Adam save skip earlier, so pretty good run overall, I would say. A lot of things went right here. A lot of things also didn't, but a lot of things went right. So quite happy with that. I maybe didn't get to comment on as many little new things as I would have liked, but well. So be it, whatever. You know, that's what I get for just sort of sitting down here for an hour and a half and just rambling. I don't know what I'm going to talk about. Nobody does. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this run. Mostly I'm just happy with my PB right now. My PB right now is a 121.21, quite good, quite happy with that. But I will be grinding it out further. I want to go eventually for sub 120 if I can. That'll be the goal. And by eventually, I mean like over the course of the next few weeks. I've improved a lot at this game over the years. I picked it up sort of when it first came out, really, after I finished my casual playthrough. Just immediately, like week 2 or week 3 of the game being out, I already picked it up. And I've improved a lot since then. So it's good to see. So I wanted to do this little checkup, little like, hey, look at what I can do now. I'm quite proud of it. So yeah, if you stuck with me this whole time, thanks for watching, and see you next mission.